The second element of art that we're going to cover is the element of shape. We left off with line. If I take a line and continue to make that moving mark go, if it happens to meet itself, like this one does, and enclose a space, then we've created the element of shape. The shape is actually two-dimensional, whereas a line is one-dimensional. A shape has length and width, or length and height. It has two dimensions. It encloses an area or a space. There can be two different kinds of shapes, two broad categories of shapes. One would be geometric shapes, which you're probably familiar with from math classes. Circles and squares and triangles are the ones that come to mind most readily. But any shape that has kind of these hard edges is oftentimes thought as being somewhat geometric. As a shape becomes more irregular, however, we think of it as being organic, where geometric shapes are typically thought of as being made by people with straight edges and in many cases precise measurements. They're much more mathematical. Organic shapes appear to be much more random, irregular, unpredictable, and oftentimes you'll see these in nature. Not to say that there aren't some unique examples of geometric shapes found in nature. So let's take a look at how some artists have used shape. First example that we'll look at is this piece called Guernica by Pablo Picasso. And it's pretty clear. It's a combination of, I would say, geometric shapes and organic shapes. So you can find shapes that look like something you might find in geometry, like these triangular shapes. There's also these more organic shapes that are representative of people's faces and figures, heads and bodies and necks and limbs. We'll take a look at this and all the other examples in art that I've used in these videos in our art history talks. But you can see each shape has a little bit different value. You've got the lightest values, the darkest values, and then several middle values. So Picasso uses shape. It's very flat. It's very geometric. In this case, Piet Mondrian's using just squares and rectangles. People sometimes look at works like this and think, well, that's awfully simple. Yeah, it is, but to choose the colors and to determine the composition is not necessarily so easy. But clearly you can see the outlines of the shapes, and they're filled in with primary colors or the neutrals of white and black. And you could go back and look at Victor Vasarely and Bridget Riley again, who we looked at with the element of line, and you can see examples of their work where they use primarily shapes. Bridget Riley and Victor Vasarely. And if you arrange these shapes in certain ways, you can create, again, optical effects, the illusion of space and depth in work. So that's the element of shape. It's two-dimensional. It can be organic, which is more irregular and natural appearing, or it can be geometric, which is a little bit more rigid, mathematical, and measured.